I'm speechless, Danya.
And I jinxed him. That was totally my bad. I said the game was over. I thought MVL would resign. How on earth did he flag him in that position?
It's one of those situations, Danya, where as Maxime, you know you're completely lost, so you want to play the least expected move. And so he ran his king out into the center. It was completely winning for Gukesh, but he just wasn't quick enough in the duress of time trouble.
I hate to be that guy, but this is where experience, the lack of experience really, really hurts you, right? When you don't play bullet regularly, you just, that extra half a second, that 0.3 seconds that experienced players make up, that's all the difference in these wild positions. It's heartbreaker after heartbreaker, and Gukesh has to find it in himself to keep on fighting because we've got a lot of chess yet to be played in this match.
So much. It's not great news for Maxime, who was hoping that he could secure an early match victory. But Donna, when you're down by 6 full points like this, as Gukesh is here in the match, how do you motivate yourself? Because you feel like, okay, it's not going my way, and I still have hours of chess left. That may feel, like hope is there. You might feel optimistic, but also might feel terrible that things are not going your way and it's going to keep happening.
Well, I think first of all, you have to get the word comeback out of your mind because you're too far away from your opponent to be actively thinking about how to tie the match. Right now, you have to break up your task into many steps. First and foremost, can you keep this within 5 points in the 5-minute portion, right? There's 16 minutes left. Set yourself a modest goal. I want to win one game. I want to make up 1 point. Then in the 3-minute portion, I want to make up another 2 points, right? You got to break it down into manageable chunks, but all of that, Robert, actually hinges on winning games, and that's what he's been lacking, that secret ingredient.
He's had great positions, but even when he gets winning advantages, he is not able to convert. And there is some credit due to Maxime, but there's also just misfortune, those unforced errors, as you see in tennis matches, losing on time just there. And in the first game of the match, where he mouse slept his rook to e8 rather than f8. Those are moments you cannot afford against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave.
That's absolutely right. And, this is no knock on Gukesh. He's had moments of brilliance in this match. He's a brilliant player. And in the previous game, the way that he handled his forces on the king side and ultimately cashed in with a beautiful tactic, a series of beautiful tactics, all he had to do was make any move in that final position. But that lack of bullet experience, it cost him. And he's paid a pawn. That's the price that he's paid for the initiative in this game. What does he have to show for it? What's going on here?
He's given up a pawn, and he paused and goes rook e4.
Whoa.
So he wants to take this knight on d4 twice, but black does have the bishop pair. So if black can safely castle, then you just claim the open board, the bishop pair. Even if you get a pawn back, it's going to be good for black.
There are some crazy lines here. Now, it should be pointed out that after the trade on f3, black's queen is literally trapped. It's some beautiful geometry with the white knight covering its only escape square. And I was going to point out f5.
What?
Knight d2? What's the move here for white?
Great. No, knight d2 is excellent because queen h5 check is going to hurt. That black queen will have both b4 and d3. Those are two available squares. He goes up the board instead of back. And I guess the reason why this isn't quite as effective is white has to spend a move on rook takes e5, and black doesn't have to move the queen away.
And what does black use this tempo to do? Well, I think the only thing to do is deploy the bishop to d7, try to marshal your forces on the king side and disarm white's initiative. It's very clear that white is the only one playing for the initiative here, but the game is far from over. It's still a very, very messy position.
Maxime completely missed it, though. You saw the look on his face after queen h5 check. He was like, oh, didn't see that coming. Now my king is in grave danger. And Donna, this is a tough decision. King d8 or king f8? I think king f8 does make more sense because, as you're mentioning, bishop d7, rook e8. But it takes a while to figure that out.
It did, and I think he figured it out and resolved the problem correctly. And now it's up to Gukesh to find a way to keep the fire of the initiative burning. And to do that, Robert, you have to complete your development. You cannot play without your rook, without your bishop. And that's exactly what he does. Bishop e3, exerting pressure on the knight and preparing to deploy his other rook to e1 or maybe even to d1.
And e6
or to c1.
All of those are good options. So bishop takes d4 followed by d takes e6 is a huge threat. Rook e8 looks like a very natural reply. And he instead plays bishop e8. So he goes after the white queen. Can that queen? And there it goes, back to h3. I was wondering, what happens once you slink back? Isn't e6 and f5 Those are huge issues.
Black's position is on the verge of collapse. D takes C6 is a huge threat. I mean, a move like G6 is probably worse than the disease. He plays E takes D5, but man, after Knight takes D5, that's got to be completely winning for Gukesh.
Sure, and he goes for it, and bishop takes d4 next. f5
Yep.
is hanging. Isn't knight b6 a fork for good measure?
It absolutely is, and it's on the board.
You saw Maxime, he shook his head. He did not see that fork either. He's been missing a lot in this game, and that should give Gukesh some confidence. You said 5-point deficit. Done it. If he wins this game, he'll get at least one more going. If he can win 2 games in a row, suddenly he will start to believe in his chances.
That's the great thing about the SCC, right? Even quote-unquote blowouts are never really blowouts because of the sheer volume of games that you play and how quickly the momentum can turn. You never know. All it could take for Gukesh is one victory like this, one crushing game. And of course, he still has to complete the circle here, but knight takes A8, I think, will lead to prompt resignation. Knight E2 and queen takes B2, though, that is the final enemy at white's door. How does Gukesh resolve the fork against his own 2 rooks?
Really good call by you because it just looks so easy. And something that Maxime and I talked about is he knows better than to resign. He is so experienced that he'll waste match clock. It's still early, so it's hard to think, oh, well, you're wasting important time just yet. But Maxime knows this format very well, so he understands that there will always be chances in each game, especially as Gukesh is down under 2 minutes. Daniel, we have not seen the best from him when he is in time trouble.
No, and this is a very difficult problem to resolve all of a sudden. I'm going to put this on the board here. Knight takes A8, knight E2 check, and king H1 relinquishes the entire advantage because after queen takes B2, white could even take on C5 with check, and still there is no way to save both of your rooks. So instead, white has to find the fearless, the intrepid king F1, and now queen takes F5. Is this elementary? Absolutely not. Queen takes A1, king takes E2, and finally, Black's initiative fizzles away, and Gukesh didn't see it. He's played bishop takes D4, and that has given Black a new lease on life, even if white is still much, much better.
And he went rook takes F5 and earned a question mark. So
queen takes
Gukesh's
B2.
advantage is gone. The A1 rook being loose has been a problem for him. And look at Maxime going rook D8. Apparently that's losing because of queen F3 and you win F7.
You win F7 with check. There's more forks galore, but at that point, I think white can just give away the knight and go directly after Black's king. Well, you should definitely start by taking the bishop with check. That's without question. Then I think the calm rook E1 sets up a beautiful tactic with rook takes G7 and rook E7.
And that's going to happen. Look, Maxime grabs the knight on B6, but rook G7 check, rook E7, queen F7. It's all mate, and Gukesh is finding it.
And let's see if MVL allows him to carry the mate out on the board. No, he will resign in this position. And that is Gukesh's first victory